Everyone, welcome to my Instagram live show called The Third Phase. Today's guest is Diane Cowen. She is recently retired lifestyle journalist from the Houston Chronicle. And if you may not know, but the Houston Chronicle is the nation's fifth largest newspaper. And we will discuss Diane's situation of retiring, getting a divorce, and then trying to get a mortgage. You think it's simple, but you're going to hear a real life story here. And to everyone else that's joining us today, I'm Lori Carpenter, interior designer and founder of The Third Phase. And I want to thank our sponsor, Life Ballet. Life Ballet is a manufacturer of stunning inset-ready grab bars for your bathrooms. They are beautiful and stunning, and they're available in modular configurations that are ADA compliant. Life is full of possibilities, and your home should too. Check out all your possibilities at lifeballet.com, and be sure and follow them over on Instagram at lifeballetnw. So help me welcome our guest, Diane, on here. Let's bring Diane on. And she is a lifestyle journalist. So I think she'll have some very insightful things to share with us. Hi,
Hi,
Diane.
how are you?
Welcome to The Third Phase.
Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here and share my experience.
Well, your experience is spot on for The Third Phase. And I am so happy that you're willing to share this with us. Diane, I know you've recently retired as a lifestyle journalist, which had to be very exciting there from the Houston Chronicle. And this is the country's fifth largest newspaper. That's quite an experience there within itself.
It
But
was.
then you retired, and then even bigger changes. You got a divorce, and 1 year later, is that correct? And buying your own home. This
Mhm.
is a lot of change in a short amount of time. I can't even begin to imagine. Today, we're here, though, to hear your story about what happened, what you decided when you decided to apply for a mortgage to buy your own home
Okay.
while you were going through divorce. So,
Okay. So, it's kind of a long story and not a long story. I worked at newspapers for 40 years. My last 10 years were as the architecture and design writer at the Houston Chronicle, which was the most fun job anyone could ever have.
I can only imagine, except I
It
can't
was,
write.
it was so great. And then, I was in what, I would just simply describe as an unhappy marriage and had been for a while. And I say that it was unhappy for both of us. Neither of us hated
Absolutely.
each other, but neither of us loved each other.
Wow.
And I just decided I needed, I stopped and asked myself, how do I want to live the rest of my life?
Yeah.
A, a very close friend had passed away. I'd known her since I was 5 years old. She was the same age as me. And it really made me think a lot about my own life and how I'm living it and how I want to live it. And so I decided that I wanted to live it very differently. And I talked to my husband, in a really simple, unconfrontational way. It was not an argument. And we both agreed that we were not happy and needed to have a fresh start. So we had an uncontested divorce, which in Texas is really simple. You
Yeah.
file one person files, the other signs a waiver saying they won't contest it. 60 days later, it goes in front of a judge, and he or she then will sign it within a matter of a few days. So I filed on July 1st. It was final on September 4th. And not,
Of this
and
year? Of this year?
yeah,
Or,
this just
oh,
happened. This
wow.
just happened.
You're
And
just a month past this. Wow.
right. And we stayed in the same house the whole time. And in fact, I am still in what is now my husband's house because I did buy a house, but it isn't quite ready. Next week, I'll be in my new house.
Oh,
So, I
good.
mean, like, it's like zoom, boom, boom, everything's happening so quickly.
Yes.
But so after I filed, and I was kind of quiet about it. I didn't put a big announcement on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. It just felt too personal. Other people do that, and that is fine for them. It was not how I wanted to do it. I am very close to my husband's family. He was close to my family. It was emotional for everyone, and I just really
Absolutely.
wanted to handle it with care. And everybody I talked to said, Diane, you need to rent a house for a year and then buy. Don't buy anything now. And I really contemplated that. And I looked online to see what would be available for a house. An apartment just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. So I thought maybe I could rent a house. I have three cats that I'm taking with me. So somebody who would rent to somebody with one cat, good luck. Three cats, I don't know if that's possible. And then I'm also a pretty frugal and practical person, and I added up, I was looking online at houses available. They were sad, awful houses, and I thought I'm going to be coming off of something emotional that has been very difficult to do, make the decision and do it. I don't want to move into some sad, awful house. I've got to
Mhm.
have a good landing. And so I decided, also, if you rent a house, you're in where I live, you're in a year, you're going to spend probably $30,000 on rent. That is an
Easy.
investment in somebody else's life, not your own. And I want that $30,000 to be part of my down payment, not part of a wasted transition time. So I just decided I'm going to look for a house, get pre-approval, make an offer, and find somebody who is willing to wait until I can close. I really thought that would be no problem whatsoever. And everyone laughed at me, like somebody's going to wait for my divorce to be final. And I did end up finding it. But along the way, it was just such a learning process about um, getting a mortgage. The last time I got a mortgage was 25 years ago, and it was my husband and I together, and it was
Mhm.
very simple. Okay. It was so simple. I don't even remember it.
Right.
Now, I mean, you are in document hell. I mean,
Yes.
absolute document hell. Banks
It's like a
and
1,000-page novel. You're
uh,
having to sign every page.
banks and mortgage companies, any financial organization is afraid of fraud. They're afraid of money laundering, drug money. There's so much out there that they are trying to avoid that they have to assume we are all thieves or criminals or something.
Yes.
And so I started looking at houses without really thinking about who I would get a mortgage through. I just thought, I just found this house that looks gorgeous. I want to go see it. And I didn't even have a realtor. So I called the realtor who was listed on that one and said, I'd like to come and see the house. And uh, that person met me at the house, and I didn't want that one, but he said, there's two others in this neighborhood. It was a 55 plus community. I just turned 65 on Saturday.
Well, happy
Um,
birthday.
thank you. Um, so I don't know if that's third phase or fourth phase, but
Your third phase.
I'm here with you today.
Yes.
So I looked at a few houses in this one neighborhood, and there was one I just loved. I could have just moved right into it. And so he's like, are you pre-approved for mortgage? I said, no, I've done absolutely nothing. So you really, if you're buying a new house, first thing you do is get pre-approved. And because you cannot make an offer on a house if you are not pre-approved. And pre-approval is simple. And it's
Hmm.
really about them looking at your debt to income ratio, your
Hmm.
credit score, some real simple things, and knowing this person can handle it or not handle it. Then they'll get into the details later. And it doesn't
Correct.
really commit anyone to anything. It just lets the buyer know you're going to be good to go probably.
Hmm.
So the realtor said that was helping me said, well, I've got some people that I work with a lot. I can send you, I'll give them a call. They'll send you a link. You go online and fill it out, blah, blah, blah. So this guy calls me. I don't even remember his name because it took three mortgage brokers to get somebody who really helped me. So the first people, they called me up and I filled out this stuff online. They came back and said, your debt to income ratio is too high. And I said, how can that be? I have, like $7,000 or $8,000 a month income, and I can do freelance work and get anything else I want. I don't have a car payment. The only real bill I will have will be my mortgage payment and utilities. I don't have any debt. I pay my credit card in full at the end of the month. I have no debt. And they said, and I was gonna initially we started with me making a small down payment because the realtor had said, you have them work it up with a small down payment, and then when you really do the full thing, you're talking about real numbers, and you tell them what you really want to put down. I said, okay. I didn't know. And so I think I had said 10% or something. And they said it was the amount I would need to mortgage was too much. And I said, well, I can put down 150, $175,000 if you want. And their reply in an email was, where would that money come from? And they had been treating me as if I had no money. I mean, really, like they were talking to me as if I had like coins in my pocket and nothing else. And I was so ticked off at them by the time we got to, and where would that money come from? I replied, in my 40-year career, I made more money than my husband. I saved more money than my husband. And now I have more money than my husband. I could pay for this house with cash if I wanted to. I just don't want to. And they replied, why don't you come back to us when you are divorced? And I was kind of crushed. And so then a girlfriend of mine had told me about a bank that she had worked with, and she banked there for a long time. She worked with somebody there. She said they were great. It sailed right through. And it was just a few years ago. So I thought, I'll call this person who helped her. And it was a woman. And so I explained what I'd been through. And she said, we will not treat you like that. And I said, I need to get pre-approved so I can make an offer on a house, because by then, this first house that I loved was gone. Somebody else bought it. I found another house that I liked, and then another house, and they were about $50,000 apart. The cheaper one was move-in ready. Like the flooring was beautiful, the paint colors were fine. I could just move in. The one that was 50,000 more expensive, I hated all of the flooring. I hated all of the paint. And so it was going to be a big expense.
Yes.
Even if I opted to do the flooring later and paint now, it's a decent expense and a fair amount of time. And so I tell her I need pre-approval and I don't want to lose out on this house. So she gives me this list of stuff to start getting her. So I started getting it all to her. And I'm getting more and more nervous. With her, I spent 3 weeks. And about a week or so into it, I'm like, Colin, we need to get this done. Why am I not getting pre-approved? And she says, we need more documents because they want 1 million documents. They want anything to do with finances that you or your social security number are on right now. If you have 2 bank accounts and you've got checking and savings in both of them, they want 2-month statements for all of those. And then you probably have to provide a letter to show that's real, because they're worried that in this age of Photoshop and AI, anyone can make a fraudulent document. So I kept having to get letters from banks with signatures saying that the documents I had given them were real. I had to do that 3 different times. I had investment accounts that had my name only, my name and my husband's name, and then my husband's name. So the ones with his name, I didn't have to provide, but the joint one and the individual one, I had to get all those documents for. And then, so it just multiplies. Every credit card you're on, even if it's, like a Dillard's card or a Neiman Marcus card, and you used it last month and you spent $100, you have to get all these statements for everything. And so while I'm waiting for mortgage banker number 2 to get me pre-approved, the second house that was move-in ready sold. So I email her, I just lost out on this house that was perfect for me. We have to
Mhm.
get this done. I don't want to lose out on the other house. So in the meantime, I tell my realtor, let these people know. And I had gone to an open house for this third house that I actually did buy.
Mhm.
And I met the realtor for the sellers. And I told him my situation, that my divorce would be final probably the first week of September. I wanted to be prepared to close the second week, that I was handling the divorce and the mortgage application simultaneously. And then as soon as we could close, we would. And if their seller would be willing to work with me, um, I would make them a full price offer.
Wow.
They were going to have to sit on, I mean, at that point, they were going to have to sit on this house for 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, once you make an offer, like all this stuff has to happen still. You know,
Yes,
they
I was
have
gonna say
time.
that it
You
takes
get an
forever.
inspection. You negotiate repairs. Like a lot of stuff unfolds. So 6 to 8 weeks was really more like asking them to sit on it for a month. But that's still a lot of time if
Yeah.
they're trying to buy something else.
Yeah.
And so the realtor, this woman was super nice, and she said, "I bet they will. I'll ask them about that." And so I was getting more and more frustrated. And my husband, I mean, my now ex-husband,
Mhm.
actually went to a friend of his that he plays racquetball with. And he says, Diane is having the hardest time with these mortgage people. And because his friend is a mortgage broker, he says, have her give me a call. So his name's Marv. I call Marv on a Saturday. He sends me a link to do the same online thing on Sunday. I fill it out. Monday at noon, I had a letter from his company saying I was pre-approved. 48 hours.
See, it's ridiculous.
And so I sent an email to banker number two and said, Dear so and so, I no longer need your services. I've gone with another broker who was able to get me pre-approved in 48 hours. Thank you for your time. You know, I didn't send anything nasty. I just said, I no longer need your services. And, you know, she replied, Well, has there been a misunderstanding? I thought,
Yeah, yeah.
that's, and I said, I needed to be pre approved to buy a home. I lost out on two homes I really wanted to buy because you took 3 weeks and got me nothing. This other guy got me pre approved in less than 48 hours. I mean, that's how I kind of thought it would go. The
Yes.
first two, you know, it would just, those were misfires, okay? And you just have to chalk it up to, I ended up in the house that's right for me.
Oh, I've
I've
lost you.
always wanted to have
There you
a
go.
swimming pool.
Uh-huh.
And we're in the process of getting it painted now. And later I will replace that flooring that I don't like. But I'm going to get in it and love what I have. It really does have a terrific floor plan. So I will
Great.
enjoy this house a lot. But, you know, it was just such a shock to try to um, uh, get a mortgage. And I hadn't done it in so long that I didn't know what the experience would be like. And later,
Yeah.
a friend of mine from pickleball is moving, and he's buying a house in Central Texas, and we were at a going away lunch for him. And I said, so how has the mortgage process gone? And he's like, you wouldn't believe how hard it is. And he's telling me all these things. And I'm like, Jim, I just did the same thing. They made me get letters. They made me get all these documents. And he's waving his arms and, you know, shouting. He's like, I can't believe these people. So it is hard for everyone. I do think, though, and a lot of people aren't buying houses every 5 years. You don't know what it's like. I
Mm-mm.
hadn't bought a house in 25 years. And in fact, it's so funny because the last time I bought a house, I was married and it was with my husband. So this time around, I'm 65 now, but in the mortgage application process, I was 64. And my banker, my mortgage guy says, you know what, Diane, you're going to laugh, but you qualify as a first time home buyer, and we can get you like a $2,500 credit from, it was like FHA or something. And I just laughed out loud. I thought, I am almost on Medicare, and now I am, qualifying as a first time home buyer because it's the first time by myself.
Yes.
So, you're never too old to do whatever it is you want to do. And you just, have to really, really be prepared. But I really feel like for all of the hassle, um, I ended up, I will be in a great house and I am going to be
Right.
super happy in it.
Great. So you do have a pool.
I do. I have a
Oh,
pool.
wonderful. Well, I'll just warn you, I have a pool as well. They are a lot of work,
I
a
know.
lot of maintenance, and a
I'm
lot of
out there
care
with a net scooping out leaves and grass every day.
every day and checking the chemicals and yeah.
And this afternoon, I have to go over and mow the lawn.
Oh, to be a homeowner. It is good and bad.
Yeah.
Okay, gosh, Diane, that is crazy what you went through. What should all women do to protect themselves financially, even if their situation isn't due to a divorce? Maybe it's health, a death.
I would say that what women ought to do is first and foremost, get know what you're worth, know what your money is, know what your investments are, no matter what age you are, and especially if you're getting older, because your partner or spouse could pass away or have a
Yeah,
stroke and be debilitated. Or, you could get a surprise and someone comes home and says, we need to talk and it's over. You
yeah,
need to know what accounts you have. You need to know what your investments are, whether it's yours alone or joint. I started contributing to a 401k in my early 30s. So when I retired, I had close to 35 years of savings,
that's wonderful.
401k savings. And at one point, I started an IRA too. So I had um, a fair amount of money saved up, and I'm pretty frugal and practical. So, like for many years, I put 20% of my income into my
Wow.
401k, and it adds up. And, there's employers don't do this anymore, but they used to have a decent match. And so every time I put money in, my employer did too.
Right.
Um, that's not really the
The
case.
good old days.
I know, back in the good old days when there were really good benefits for people
Yeah.
who, stayed at a company for a while. But so women really need to know their money. You
Yeah.
need to know what you've got. You need to be very careful about how you spend money. I know people who just say, I want to buy a boat, and they go out and buy a boat. I want to buy, an upgrade on the car. And so they buy a really expensive car and they have all this debt. I knew people who had 40 and $50,000 in credit card debt. And, that's how people end up declaring bankruptcy
Yeah.
and that's terrible for your credit rating. You've got to limit the credit that you've got. I always try to pay off whatever I put on a credit card, pay it off at the end of the month.
Yes.
It helps your credit score. Having a good credit score was the best thing for me in addition to having money that
Right.
I could use as a good down payment. Because when you have a good down payment, I think the amount is 40%. So if you're buying a house for mine was almost 400,000 and you put 40% down, then you don't have to escrow your taxes and insurance. So your mortgage payment can be lower and you save your money yourself to pay your taxes and your insurance when you want. Otherwise, the mortgage company does it because they want to make sure that they've got all that money. But they're
Okay.
banking your money and making interest off of it.
Right.
Instead, you put your money back and you earn interest on it all year long. Even if it's a small amount, it's your money,
I
right?
wonder if
And
that's in every state or if that's just Texas.
it might be Texas, but I imagine that there's some percentage amount for every state.
Uh-huh.
So if you're whatever state you're in, find out what your options are for being able to not escrow your insurance and your taxes on your mortgage. Because
Right.
my mortgage payment now is $1,300 a month. If they were going to escrow, it was going to
That
be
is
over 2,000 a month.
right. Well,
And
and rent would be how many thousand if you were renting?
I would have spent $30,000 or more in rent. I just put into my own savings account um, a big chunk of money for taxes.
Yes.
I paid my insurance in full for the whole year, so I don't have to worry about it for a whole year. I put a bunch of money for property taxes and for income taxes. I don't know what the amount is actually going to be, but I
Hmm.
can sleep easy knowing that I have.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the
That's right.
that hitting you.
That's right. I mean,
Smart.
you have to sort of be able to plan ahead, and you have to be someone who can say, I'm going to put 10 or 15 or $20,000 aside in this savings account because there are mine earns a small amount of interest, but
Right.
I put $15,000 back. That's going to earn, I mean,
You'll
it's
learn.
not just,
Yeah.
it's a chunk, going to be a chunk of money, right?
Right.
And so you can't be someone who says, "Oh, but I really want a new Chanel purse," or "I want to upgrade my car this year." You have to be able to say, "I'm going to keep driving my 5-year-old car for another year because, I just went through this and this and this and this, and I have
Hmm.
no idea what my income taxes are going to be." You have to be
Yeah.
able to just step back and say, I'm going to be financially chill for a little while.
Yes.
And then when I can come up for air, I can decide on a really nice trip to take or, whatever it is you really
Right.
want to spend your money on. But, you really have to be organized about your finances, know what you've got, know what your income is, and know what your expenses are. I will be honest with you, when I was working, I could not have told you what my weekly pay was. It was direct deposited into my account. My account always had enough money to pay bills and buy what I needed to buy. And at the end of the year, when I got my W-2, it was like, oh, wow, I made that much money. Like, if someone said, what's
Yeah.
your annual income? I really don't know. I would have to
Right.
look it up. And we should know.
Yeah. We should know.
And
It's I
my husband paid all our bills. I couldn't have told you what our electric bill was or what our property taxes were. I
yeah.
really didn't know because we each had our own jobs at home. I did certain
Mhm.
things and he did certain things. And he was a finance major and he knows a lot more about investing. And he just took the lead on that. I would say I was not financially illiterate by any means,
Right.
but I was not as in the know as I should have been. And there were some surprises along the way as I'm gathering all these documents. It's like, wait a minute, what is that? You
Yeah.
know, like I had an annuity and I know my husband talked to me about it, but I could not have explained to you at that time what an annuity was. And once I
Right.
got a really good explanation for it, I thought if I had paid more attention, I would have said, I don't think I want an annuity.
Mm.
So, it was a real learning experience in good ways and in ways that made me want to just cry.
Yeah. Well, it's something that, this is something that we may have to deal with in our third phase, but really those people in their 20s and 30s need to pay attention because it is so important to know those things
It
and to
is.
know.
And
Yeah.
if they can save anything, in my 20s, I always said, I don't have enough money to have a
Right.
big savings. Um, and I did start getting serious about it when I met my husband because he was very money minded. And,
Right.
I started paying more attention to it. But I would have been even more comfortable if I had started saving in my 20s.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you
But you
wait until
don't.
if you start when you're about 30 years old, you should be fine.
Yeah.
I never took a penny out of my 401k or IRA. I let it all grow. And,
Yes.
I would go long periods of time without looking at it. And then I'd look and think, oh, yeah, I made some money last year. But you just have to know. And I feel like for women that I've known lots of women who get surprised. They think they're in a happy marriage and they find out that their husband is divorcing them and has hidden a whole bunch of money, like
Yeah.
stashed it in secret accounts. There are accountants called forensic accountants, and they are accountants who primarily work for women going through divorces.
Wow.
I know one, and when I met her, she told me what she did for a living, and I go, what is that? I've never heard of it. She says, I am an expert at tracking money. And she said, my usual clients are women going through divorces. Their husbands have cleaned out accounts, or very deftly taken lots of money out of accounts that are, and it's hard to find, and I find it.
Wow, I didn't know there was such a thing.
I didn't either. And, but I've known women who, a coworker was telling me about a friend who her husband, said, sent her on a girls' trip with her best girlfriends to um, Napa Valley for her birthday. She gets home, the house is empty, the bank accounts are empty, and he's off and has filed for divorce.
How
It,
scary. How
okay, it
scary.
doesn't happen every day, but I'm telling
No,
you, that stuff happens.
it
And
does.
it often happens to people who are not expecting it.
Right.
And I'm not saying don't trust men by any means, but I am saying know where your
No.
money is, know
Yeah.
what your accounts are, and always have some money of your own. And I think that women should have an account of their own. You should have a credit card that is your own. And so that, you can always land on your feet. And you've got some little, and like I had an account and my husband knew, and I
Hmm.
just called it my stash. And I would, like when we were still married and I was freelancing, I would just stashed away. I would do some freelance writing, $400 or $500 here and there. And it was my sort of mad money. And it was my little stash. And I kind of felt like, women need to have a stash, and it needs to be in a bank account, and it needs to be a safety net. I really believe that.
Great tips. Great tips. Any last words or advice you'd like to share with us? Maybe something we haven't covered.
A few things that I would say is that as we get older, we need to have plans for our lives.
Hmm.
When I was started thinking about retiring, there was a buyout offer at work, and I felt like I just wasn't psychologically or emotionally ready for that. And I thought maybe in a year or two. And then a year or two later, I kind of decided on a retirement date, and they offered another buyout package, which I took and left. But that couple of years gave me time to think about who I'm going to be when I retire. I was very wrapped up in my profession and in my career. It was a high profile job. I worked in a very large market, and everyone in design and architecture knew who I was. And
Right.
you when you retire, you go from being somebody to being nobody, right? You used to have a key to the front door. Now you don't
Yeah.
even have a key to the back door, and you don't have a pass to get you in the parking lot. And so, you have to have a plan for what you're going to do and who you're going to be. Have good friends that you can lean on, have hobbies so you have things to do. You don't want to be somebody who retires and sits down in front of a TV and doesn't get up. You
No.
want to be active and healthy. That's another one. Take care of your health
Take
so
care
that
of your
when you
health.
retire, you can have fun, you can
Yeah.
travel. I play pickleball, and I have made so many great friends playing pickleball. And if one of us doesn't show up for a couple days in a row, you will get 5 text messages saying, "Where are you? Are
Are
you
you okay?
okay? Do we need a wellness check?" And so you need to prepare for your life and prepare for a life without work, without your career. There's a lot of volunteer work you can do. You can work part-time. My freelance work is sort of part-time. I
Hmm.
joke that the design community would not let me retire, that they said, "No, we need you to do this, we need you to do that." And so I do a tiny bit of work, and it still makes me feel relevant and needed. But I do a lot of
Great.
volunteer work too. I'm a graduate of Purdue University, and
Hmm.
I'm a mentor for a Purdue student in the School of Communications. And I'm on the alumni board of the house that I lived in, and we're launching a capital
Fabulous.
campaign. And so, like, I loved my years at Purdue, and I lived in a great co-op house, and I am still friends with women I knew from there. And I wanted to give back because it was such an important growing up part of my life. And so I built into my retirement things that would keep me happy, keep
Hmm.
me grounded, and help me just like be positive and move forward in life. And I think everyone can have that and do that. You have to prepare for it and think about it. It does not happen by accident.
No. It doesn't. Have you thought of having a second career? You're still young enough. You could, especially with your talent.
Well, I feel like people are constantly telling me, you should do this and you should do that. And I'll say, I kind of enjoy sleeping in and playing pickleball. But I do write freelance work, and those people are asking me to do more. And I'm involved with the Houston Design District. I'm involved in a program they have called Leaders in Design. And so I co-host a quarterly event, and there's a lot of fall design week and spring design week events, and I always moderate panels for those. I've got one, I did one just last week. I've got a different one coming up in a couple more weeks. So I do have all that stuff, a lot.
Nice.
Honestly, most of that is volunteer work. The freelance writing I get paid for,
Hmm.
but the leaders in design and the moderating panels and that kind of stuff, I do a lot of public speaking and moderating panels. That is all volunteer work. And
Great.
it's a community here that was really good to me when I was working, and I want to do some good things for them too.
Well, this has been fabulous, Diane. It's I'm just so thankful that you wanted to share this with us because I felt like this is a story that women, especially us in our third phase, that we need to know how to deal with it.
We do, and we need to keep hearing from other people what they are doing and what their
Right.
challenges are. Because I learned so much that I just had no idea I needed to know or needed to
Right.
do. And, I had to go out and buy a lawnmower. And it's like, you know, my ex-husband is showing me how to start it. I
Yeah,
couldn't even start it. But I'll tell you, starting a lawnmower can be hard.
it's
Um,
hard.
but, learning about finances is super important. And I think for women, if you feel like you're not really that knowledgeable about money and investing, there are all kinds of seminars online. If you're with a brokerage or any kind of investment company and they offer webinars or seminars, you should log on and listen to them. Even if you just soak up one little bit of information, it's worth it. And, you know,
Absolutely.
watch, some of the business news programs and
Hmm.
learn about some of the terminology. There are lots of ways to absorb all that information, but this is an important phase of our life, and we have to be advocates for ourselves and for each other.
Absolutely. Diane, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you for
I
having
will look
me.
forward to maybe meeting you in person at some point.
I hope so.
Thank you again for being
Sure
on the
thing.
third phase. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye bye.